Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Haze. I'm an artist and speed painter from Malaysia, and today is the last day of the 3-day portrait challenge. So the 3-day portrait challenge is where you spend 1 to 2 hours every day in the hopes of creating a portrait like this. And today we'll be finishing the portrait by adding the details and all the styles and embellishment that you would like to add. So let's get started. Okay, before we start today's challenge, remember to download the following resources from my website first. Also remember to download the reference photo from the link in the description below.
Clean up!
Okay, picking up from where we left off yesterday, we need to clean up our image, and the first thing we can do is to fix the colors for areas where the colors are incorrect. So to do that, we would pick the saturation brush, and then we will pick the correct color and then recolor the areas that the colors are wrong. For example, now I'm recoloring the nail color to a pastel pink color that you can see on the left panel. And if anytime you're confused at which layer I'm at and what brush I'm using and the color swatch, you can just look at the left panel for more information. The first method to do this is to pick the layer that you want to change. Now I'm picking the neck layer, and I'm going to tap on the brush and make sure my saturation brush is selected. Then I adjust the size, and now I'm using the color picker and picking a swatch so that I can color over the neck with the proper color. So this way, I'm not actually using a new color from the color palette, but instead I'm using the color picker to pick colors near the area where I want to change. So in areas where you find that there's a correct color, you can use that color instead. After all our hard work yesterday, you'll find that it's very easy to just pick colors around and then repaint the areas because we have a very good foundation of the skin tone colors at this point. The second thing to do during cleanup is to use the smudge tool to clean up the brush strokes as you are working on recoloring. You can do this by selecting the smudge tool and loading the flat brush smudge into this tool and then use it to smudge the tones around to create a nice brush stroke. Your goal in this step is to make sure that the shadow shapes and the light shapes are distinct from each other. You can also take this opportunity to use the smudge tool to change certain shapes in your drawing, like let's say the nose is too fat or too thin. You can just push some shapes around to fix it. And the next thing you want to do is to clean up the edges and the boundaries of your drawing if it is still not tight enough. So to do this, you will need to turn off the alpha lock. To do this, just go to the layers, tap on the layer and turn off alpha lock. When it's turned off, you will see that it's unchecked. And then after that, you can smudge the edges to blur it, or use eraser or sketch new outlines for your boundaries. Personally, I like to use the smudge tool to clean up the edges compared to the eraser tool because I like the soft edge that it gives me. Of course, you can always choose to use the sketch brush and just paint in an outline. You can also take these opportunities to make the shadows darker if your shadows are still not dark enough, so just pick a dark color and redo some of the shadows and blend it out. Once the colors, the brush work, and the borders are cleaned up, you can actually just move to the next stage.
Texture.
When you are ready, let's go ahead and load the skin brush, and then we are going to paint the texture of the skin. So in the light areas, we are going to use a dark color around it. Like in the neck area right now, I'm using the surrounding browns to paint the texture on the light areas. Here's another example. On the hand, I'm picking the dark brown to paint skin texture on the light areas. I'm using such a light touch, you might not even see the texture at all, but it's actually very visible on my screen, so use your own judgment. Next, we can use the freckles brush to put in some freckles. This freckles is quite random and unpredictable, so if you're worried of messing things up, you can create a new layer and put the freckles in a separate layer. Then after that, you can even change the blending mode to multiply so that it's darker and turn the opacity down to get the intensity that you want. If things go wrong, you can even do the freckles first and then erase those that overlap areas that you want them to disappear. Then when you're done, you can just merge the layer down into your main layer by tapping on the layer and tap merge down.
Details.
We are nearing the end, my friends, and now we're gonna add the details. So let's do it part by part, and let's work on the hand first. So let's begin by picking the hand layer and then outlining the fingers and certain areas where we feel that there should be an outline. After that, I'm going to pick this color and then I'm going to put down all the highlights for the nails. And remember to use some of the highlights for the moon of the nail, and also to do some highlights for the finger and the skin as well. You can also choose to restate the wrinkles and the folds in the hands at this point. Okay, now let's move on to the ears. You can choose to draw the earring. So I like to just block in the shadows first and then apply the midtones and the highlights. I'm just using the colors from the existing Easy Skin Tone palette. Then after that, I put in the highlights for the ears. I like to use a very pale pink color for this. Okay, for the lips, I like to clean up the shadows and the highlights first. So for the highlights, I like to just use the sketch brush and sketch in some highlights before I continue. Don't forget to highlight the corner of your lips. This is very important if you want to have juicy lips. Once I'm done, I'm gonna go and switch to the reflective highlights brush, and then I'm gonna do a dragging motion, just following the contour of the lips all along the lips, so to give it a little bit of a texture. Then we're back to the sketch brush to put in even more highlights. For this part, just try and observe the photo and see how you can paint the texture of the highlights one by one. It's a very good practice to do this. Then we're gonna switch to the glitter brush pack, the featured highlights freestyle brush, and we're gonna use it in a very soft and light manner to put in even more highlights for our lips. And now for the face, let's redo the outlines with a dark color using the sketch brush. After that, we will pick the texturizer 2 brush from the glitter brush pack and put in some highlights for the skin. Make sure that when you're using this brush, you do not pick a very light color and use a very light touch when you're doing this, or else it will seem like it's too much. This brush is very good because it acts like a texturizer and it also can be used as a highlighter.
Break time!
For the eyes, first let's use the smudge tool to clean and push some paint around. And then after that, we can use the saturation brush to change the colors of the iris. Just pick a color you like. And then after that, we can do the darkest dark with the airbrush so that we have a soft edge before we move on to hard edge. To do the hard edge, just use the sketch brush and then sketch the outlines and some of the darkest darks. You can also restate the highlights in the inner corner of the eyes, and then do some textures and wrinkles on the folds of the eyes. All the highlights that you do will serve as a texture and also as highlights. Then after that, start by dragging a light brown for the lash shadow. If you're doing wrinkles, make sure that you have a dark color and also a light color on top. Then for the whites of the eye, we can just use the featured highlights freestyle brush to paint in all the highlights. You can try to use vibrant colors and this will give a very different result. For the eyes white, if we put highlights here, it will look like the eye is glistening and it's wet. And also remember to put highlights on the lash line itself for the lower lash line. The highlights on the lower lash line will make it look like it's wet. While you're here, remember to put the highlights for the skin around the eyes as well. And when you're done, we can use the strand brush to put in all the lashes. When you're doing the lashes, make sure that it's following the direction that is correct. So look at the photo for reference. For the lower lashes, make sure to paint them on top of the shadows that you've prepared just now.
Break time!
And now let's move on to the brows. For the brows, let's use the hairbrush. Before you do this, let's create a new layer above the face and paint the brows on this new layer so that we do not disturb the face if we make any mistakes. Using the hairbrush, let's rough in the directions of the hair. And after that, we can use the sketch brush to add the finer hair for the brows. It's even more important to follow the directions of how the hair flows when you're using the sketch brush to do the fine hairs. And now let's start to work on the nose. I used the sketch brush to do some detailing for the highlights first. After that, I'll just use the featured highlights freestyle brush to do softer highlights on top of the existing highlights. This brush is not easy to control, but once you learn how to do it, you will be able to do very soft and natural highlights. And now it's time to finish the face, so I'm using the featured highlights freestyle brush to add in more highlights for the face. Remember to use an extremely light touch or else you'll just be fighting against this brush. And then let's create a new layer on top of face, and this layer will be called highlights, and we'll paint some blue tones on it. We'll set this to add in blending mode, so tap the N icon and change this to add. You can turn down the opacity for this layer to adjust the intensity. We can also add some highlights in this layer for the forehead. Now for the last part, which is the hair, we're going to select both the hair layers, and for each layer we're going to turn off the alpha lock because now we need to add the hair on it. We're going to use a smudge brush to smudge the hairline where it parts. And then after that, we're going to use the hairbrush to fill in the gaps with more hair. And also we are going to fill up the entire border with more hair as well. Now is the time to change the color of the hair. If you want to change, you can just drop in another color. Just remember to turn on the alpha lock. And then you can use another color that is lighter to put in the highlights for the hair.
Your drawing!
And we are done for now for the portrait. So if you want to add more stylistic embellishment or other drawings on top of the portrait, you can do so. For me, I've added some flowers. So this is how my portrait looks like after it's done. We're finally done with day 3. Yay! Okay guys, congratulations! You guys are awesome. You guys actually finished the 3-day portrait challenge, and this has been an amazing journey for me, and I hope it has been an amazing journey for you guys as well. So leave a comment down below if you have any questions, and like and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more challenges like these. Let me know if you have any suggestions. I have another challenge coming up for you guys. So thank you so much for watching. See you guys next time. Bye!